Krishna prastaya bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Ite Namani.
I hope that you have all had a wonderful Janmashtami celebration and the celebration of Srila Prabhupada's Vyas Puja, and are now here with us to continue celebrating Srila Prabhupada by observing and learning from his activities, his life, how he was the perfect gentleman, and how he demonstrated all of the qualities, all the 26 qualities of a devotee. So here again with Siddhanta Prabhu, we are ready to examine quality number, what is it?
16.
That's what I was 15 or 16.
Yeah, 16. He controls his senses. You know, the Rupa Goswami says if one can control his tongue, belly, and genitals, then he can make disciples all over the world. So we're going to have some stories today that exemplify how Prabhupada actually did make disciples all over the world and is still making disciples all over the world. Today we're going to hear from Shrutikirti, Jananivas, Janardhan Swami, Yogeshwara, Rupa Vilas, Udayananda, and Arjuna Das.
Okay.
So we can just start off and hear from Shrutikirti, first of all. So let's hear from Shrutikirti Prabhu.
Now, one time was in Sydney, Perth, Australia. So when we went through the Australian tour, we were traveling a lot. So there was a lot of time being on the planes, time zones, flying. So by the time we got to where we were, I guess we were a little tired, or anyway, we're in Australia, so eating very opulent prasadam, like I say, lots and lots of dairy products that they used. So this particular day, the room we're staying in, it was belonged to a devotee's parents. It was like a, what do you call, vacation cottage. So this one we were using as our bedroom, had an actual picture window that exposed what was our bedroom. Prabhupada was in his own room. Anyway, I hear the bell ringing in the afternoon, and I go in, and Prabhupada's saying, it was one of his lines, I've been ringing this bell for hours. Everyone's sleeping like dead men. He said, all like dead men. He said, the karmis aren't sleeping. Prabhupada used that word. Karmis aren't, he said, they're all working very hard for their sex life, but not our devotees. He said, sleeping very, very comfortably. He said, call them. Well, that was always the thing, call them. So I go in, wake up Paramahamsa. Prabhupada wants to see us, he's mad. I wasn't even happy for what was about to happen. And then I go to the boys, these young brahmacharis. I said, Prabhupada wants to see you. Of course, they're smiling. They couldn't wait to see Prabhupada. Now I'm thinking, we'll see. So we get into, now we're all four of us are sitting in there, and Prabhupada gives the exact same, all sleeping like dead men, he said, rascals. Everyone's out working very hard, he said, for their life, sex life. He kept, these men working so hard, but not my disciples. He's very nicely sleeping, he said. Sleeping. He said, go and sleep. That was the worst thing he could have done. He thought, so now we all walk out of our room with the heads down, and we go in, and now everyone's sitting there, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. A couple minutes go by and the bell rings. We go back in for obeisances. Prabhupada looks at one of the young boys. He said, get a book and read. Of course, they're all his books behind him. By now, 75, maybe a dozen books. He said, take one book and begin reading. He said, we'll have class. So he was, right away, he was straightening us out. He was showing, just because we're in this house, doesn't mean the program isn't there. So, of course, it always happens. The boy, which book, Prabhupada? Any book. So he grabs Bhagavad Gita, takes it, puts it. Where should I read? Anywhere. He wouldn't even let him speak. I heard this man. This was Prabhupada's mood. There's no special place. It's everywhere you go. He said, Krishna's like a sweet ball. Everywhere you bite, it's sweet. So then, of course, he started reading right away. A few days later, it happens again. These boys aren't there. Now we're in Fiji. Another more traveling. And Paramahamsa and I, we're just knocked out. And we're resting. It's morning. It's like 10 in the morning after breakfast. But we're sleeping. And the bell rings. Why are you sleeping? I would never give a response. I'd just look at, because whatever response I would give, he would, smash it. I knew that. I just kind of look. Where's Paramahamsa? He's resting, Prabhupada. Call him. He's a Maharaj. So now I go to Paramahamsa. Again, Prabhupada wants to see her. I said, Paramahamsa, he's really mad we're sleeping. But I don't say anything else. I don't know what to say. So we both go in. Offer obeisance. Prabhupada looks at him. Why are you sleeping? Prabhupada, jet lag. Prabhupada said, I'm also flying with you. He said, I have no jet lag. He said, you're a sannyasi. He said, you're supposed to be reducing your sleeping and eating. He said, not more. He said, this is our business. And he said, all right. He said, go. And we left.
Oh, yes. The real the opposition of Srila Prabhupada's control of his senses and our difficulty.
Yeah, we have a ways to go to
We have a
reach
way.
that that quality and that ability to control our senses. So that's a good one to start with. Now let's listen to Jaundice, and he explains how Prabhupada was able to control his senses in the aspect of, we have the threefold miseries. Miseries coming from the body, miseries coming from the demigods, miseries coming from other living entities. So this is a story that he tells us about Prabhupada's ability to control his senses in the midst of seemingly difficult material situations.
Yes.
Another thing Prabhupada didn't like was the mosquitoes. And there were millions and millions of mosquitoes, and we were the only light around. We were on the bank of the Ganga. There was no other lights. As soon as we lit the kerosene lamp or candles, and immediately all the bugs and mosquitoes would come. So we used to burn the cow dung to make smoke. And Prabhupada, he quite liked it. We were all crying and everything, stinging, but Prabhupada it didn't affect him. And he quite liked it. He said, my Guru Maharaj used to have his chapatis cooked on this gobar, this cow dung patties. Gives them a very nice flavor. But he would complain sometimes. He said, I just put my hand under the mosquito net to get my books. And immediately they're coming biting my hand. So Prabhupada was completely unfazed in Mayapur. There was no running water, there was no electricity or anything. He had a jute stick toilet, a hole in the ground with some jute sticks around it. But still he followed exactly the same schedule. He couldn't use his dictaphone machine because there's no electricity. So he had his typewriter under his mosquito net on his bed, and he would type out with his two fingers. The purpose was unfazed. He got up at the same time, he went out for a morning walk, come back and greet the deities. Even there's no facility, it didn't faze him. He was just his old schedule he kept maintained perfectly.
Yeah, that's such a very wonderful example of how one who can really control his senses can maintain this service system regardless of the situations, because he's got the control to adapt. I think the adaptability is a mark of one's control.
Yeah, equal in all situations.
Yeah.
Now let's listen to Yogeshwar Prabhu, who tells us about an instance where in France, and where Prabhupada was able to control his tongue in the face of adversity. And a very unique story that a couple other devotees have told us about, but here's another angle of vision for this particular anecdote. Let's listen to Yogeshwar Prabhu.
From June of 1974, we devotees in France had organized a program for him in Paris at the concert hall called Salle Pleyel, which is 3,000 seat venue, one of the most distinguished venues in the city. All of the great composers from the early part of the 20th century, Wagner and Stravinsky and Debussy and Ravel, they'd all performed there. And now, years ago, if I were describing Srila Prabhupada's program there, I would have talked about how it was filled to capacity, how that we had this rousing kirtan, how we had this, he gave this powerful lecture. And at one point in his lecture, Srila Prabhupada makes the following statement. He says that dharma, or religion, means the codes given by God. And he says, just like the state, I'm quoting Prabhupada now from his lecture, just like the state, if we abide by the laws of the state, then we are good citizens. We are peaceful citizens. We are responsible citizens. The place erupts in yelling and protest. And Srila Prabhupada asks Jyotirmayi, who was translating, saying, what are they saying? What is that? So she says, they don't like what you're saying because they don't like the government. They don't like the laws of the state. So Srila Prabhupada turns to the audience and he says, you may not like it, but if you do not follow the laws, you will be punished. So just imagine the scene that's going on here. And here's Srila Prabhupada sitting on the stage, and the students start yelling, par terre, sit on the floor, sit on the floor. And one young man jumps up on the stage and he yells at Srila Prabhupada. He says, one thing we would never do, we would never sit on a throne and require that other people bow down before us. Well, big applause. And Srila Prabhupada, everything goes quiet. And Srila Prabhupada's looking at the young man, he's thinking. And he says, if you want to hear me, I can get down from this throne, but you wouldn't understand what I'm telling you any better. And if you know God, you could sit here and teach others. Afterwards, he made the surprising comment to us that the next time I come to Paris, if I do a program like this, just bring a simple wooden chair. They don't appreciate the respect that you offer to your spiritual master and the elaborate Vyasa-san. It's not helpful. So next time I come, we'll make it simple. And so he understood. He was sensitive to that. There was no insisting on the formalities and the rituals. Whatever was important, whatever needed to be done for reaching people where they are, he was in favor of that.
Hare Krishna, yes. Controlling the senses means also controlling the emotions that get tied to those senses.
Yeah, he could have gotten angry. Yeah, but he didn't. He understood with his intelligence, and Krishna showed him, okay, this is where they're at. You know, the art of preaching is figuring out where the person you're talking to, where his consciousness is at, and what it will take through your words, through the use of your tongue, to preach properly where they will hear the message.
Right.
And so Prabhupada understood that and was able to control his tongue. The tongue is meant for eating and speaking.
Yeah.
So in this case, the sense of the tongue to speak, and Prabhupada was always conscious of speaking in an appropriate manner for whomever his audience was. And he learned that that's where they were at. The political scenario was such that they could not appreciate the mood that the devotees presented, their spiritual master with the Vyasa-san, etc. Now, in that regard to the tongue being able to speak or eat, Now let's hear from Janardhan Swami, who tells us how Prabhupada instructed him to engage the tongue regarding eating.
Okay.
What I was talking to you before we started recording, I was mentioning how when I had jaundice or hepatitis, contagious, it's jaundice that you get from water, basically, or from contaminated food. But in India, it's not uncommon. And I had jaundice, and I went to Srila Prabhupada, and I said, Srila Prabhupada, I told him I had jaundice. I said, so what should I eat? And Srila Prabhupada said, only take Krishna Prasadam. And I was just, oh, okay, Srila Prabhupada, fine, but what shouldn't I eat? And he said, don't take anything that's not Krishna Prasadam. I just thought, that was like classic Prabhupada, kind of the way he could just answer in the most simple way.
Yes. Yeah. Only Krishna Prasadam. That is the control.
That's right. That's how you engage the tongue properly. Control the senses by eating Krishna Prasadam. And it also showed his, sense of humor was there. But that's the message. Don't eat anything except Krishna Prasadam. Now let's listen to Rupa Vilas Prabhu, who again will give us another example how Prabhupada controlled his senses, the use of the tongue, regarding a case similar to Yogeshwar Prabhu, where Prabhupada was being attacked, and how he dealt with that by controlling his senses.
One summer, Srila Prabhupada was visiting with us, and it was very hot. So he wanted to go outside, and at that time, there was no garden, a nice spot for him to sit. So he went out and sat on the lawn in a chair on Graham Street, which is the busy street. And all these cars were zipping by, and Prabhupada was sitting out in the lawn in a chair with just a sannyas, what do you call that? The top, whatever, the sannyasi top. Someone was fanning him with a peacock fan. We were sitting out around Prabhupada, and this man walked by on the sidewalk. And when he saw Prabhupada, he just did a double take, and it was more than he could handle, because just after he looked, and then he walked by, and he just couldn't handle it, so he walked back, and in a very demanding voice, he said to Prabhupada, "Why is that man fanning you?" And Prabhupada, was just sitting very relaxed in the chair, and he just said, "It is hot." So this man he didn't know what to say. He just turned on his heel and walked off. So Prabhupada kind of demolished his whole irritation with 2 words, or 3 words. "It is hot." And that was it. So that was kind of a humorous.
Yes. Yeah. The ability to always, say say the right things in the right time in the right circumstances. Yeah. I think the control is not just it's a control of the emotions and the feelings, but also a control that is because of being Krishna's servant. And Krishna just supplies.
Yeah, it's the example of his wit.
Yeah.
To control that situation. And again, controlling the emotion and the urge of the tongue to defend. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. So that's how he defended himself, by speaking the truth in a very sublime and subtle, humorous way.
Yeah.
Now let's listen to Udayananda Prabhu, who will tell us a story about Srila Prabhupada, a time that he had alone with Srila Prabhupada, where Prabhupada was able to exhibit to him, and now to us, the pushings of the body for eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So this one is going to focus on the sleeping propensity and the desire to sleep. So let's listen to Udayananda Prabhu.
And by the time we got back to Fogal Ashram, we were staying at Fogal Ashram, it was like midnight. And everyone was completely exhausted. I mean, the day was just like, I'm done. you know. I'm like the, you know, zombies, the Walking Dead. And, but unfortunately, I had gotten a little sick because I ate some jalebis in the marketplace, right? What is that place called down in Vrindavan? Whatever. Loi Bazaar. So, you know, I got sick and, you know, diarrhea. So I went to take rest and like, you know, ran to, you know, did my stuff and came back, lay down, 5 minutes later, get up, go back, lay down. Every time I laid down and relaxed, I had to go back. It was just really hellish. And this was like going on for about a half hour. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to be able to sleep. I might as well just stay up and go chant my japa. And I'll go down to the temple. And it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. So everyone was, I mean, like everyone was dead. Dead tired, exhausted from all the festivities. I was the only person. I walked down there. I was the only person walking from Fogal Ashram. It was almost a little scary, actually. But also really sweet, too. Very quiet, very sublime in Vrindavan. I came in, and there was, also I was thinking, well, maybe I'll go do the 24-hour kirtan, because Prabhupada had initiated that. Well, when I actually got to the temple, there was one devotee, and he was laying on the mridanga, going, Hare, Krishna. You know, it's kirtan, but I thought, I think I'll just chant my japa. So I came out the front of Krishna Balaram's temple, and I started to circumambulate. And as I came around the back of the temple, I was right next to Srila Prabhupada's room. And there was a light on. Now, Prabhupada has been preaching, I mean, tirelessly since 4 o'clock in the morning. It's 2 o'clock the next day. And in his room, he has his dictaphone. And he's going, Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur says in his explanation of the Gita. And Prabhupada's translating the Bhagavatam. And I'm like, why? You've already done it all. You've done everything. You've done this big festival. There's no one around to see you doing this, but he was there translating the Bhagavatam. And he was doing it for us. That was the only, logical, he should be exhausted himself. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. He got back at midnight. And he's translating the Bhagavatam. And I got to I chanted my japa, and it was just me and Prabhupada. He didn't know I don't know if he knew. He knows whatever Krishna wants him to know. And I just got to watch him translate the Bhagavatam for about 20 minutes. And then his servant came out and kicked me out. I'm like, I'm not doing anything. But the amazing thing was Srila Prabhupada's tireless pursuit of giving Krishna consciousness to this planet, to this world, to this universe. And that's why he's the spiritual master of the universe.
Sure. Yes, that ability to rise above the pushings of the senses, everyone else, but he is above it all.
Yeah. Easier said than done, but Prabhupada showed us he's the acharya in every aspect, and this his ability to control the pushing of the body to sleep, his desire to preach was far surpassed the desire to sleep.
Yeah.
Easily.
Krishna's energy, just here you are.
Yeah, that's supplied.
You don't need the energy from the body and all of that everybody. No, I'll give you the energy, and you do my service.
Right. Now let's finish up with Arjuna Das Prabhu, who will tell us the ultimate story about controlling his senses and the ultimate test at the time of leaving the body, where the body is filled with so much pain, physical pain.
I was amazed at Srila Prabhupada's being able to transcend his bodily condition. For example, I was there when, right near the end, and the Kaviraj, who they had flown up from Calcutta, one of the best. Prabhupada had a dream about this Kaviraj. And he was a really excellent Kaviraj. You could see he was dhira, he was a sober practitioner, very Brahminical like that, and very, very reverential to Prabhupada. And he was from the Sri Sampradaya, big white and red tilak. And one day he told, I got this second hand, from perhaps Harisori, but he said, you know, I had doubt that your Guru Maharaj was actually a Paramahams saint. But he said, I have assisted, you know, thousands of people dying. And usually in this condition, when there's no more muscle and fat to cushion the nerves from being pressed against the bone, he said, people are in such agony that I have to administer morphine. And he says, your Guru Maharaj never manifests the slightest expression of pain. And I saw this, for example, in around April or so, March, April in Bombay. Srila Prabhupada's tooth had his whole jaw swell up. And like when we get toothache, you know, we can't tolerate it, but Prabhupada just tolerated it. You never saw any difference in his mannerisms, in his way of dealing with anyone, or never complain. Oh, in fact, when the devotees, I remember that, him trying to induce him that to take care of his body, Prabhupada wasn't agreeable. It's totally transcendental of being his body. So right up to the end like that, was very, very evident that Srila Prabhupada was a successful Ashtanga yogi, for me at least, that he had totally transcended his bodily conception. And he was a true living saint.
Hare Krishna, yes. Not just controlling the pushings of the senses towards sense objects, but the effects of the senses to the experiences that they bring forth, pains and all kinds of other feelings that just like just floating above it.
Yeah, transcended those threefold
Remarkable.
miseries. It was not affected at all. You know. So thank you for thank you for listening and helping press on the glories and the qualities of Prabhupada. Next week or next Ekadashi is number 17, which is he does not eat more than required.
Related.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, thank you for hosting.
Thank you for all this compilation and all the work that you did to get all these interviews, and now to again bring them together into these reflections and examinations, analysis, you could say.
Yeah, it's my pleasure for sure. Yeah, it's a great meditation.
It's wonderful. So much needed. Thank you, and thank you everyone who's listening. For tuning in this Ekadashi. We look forward to the next one. And in between, let's always remember Srila Prabhupada and remember our service to him, and always be Krishna conscious. Hare Krishna.